ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ ਦ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਰੈਂਕ ਜੇਮਸ ਨਾਲ। ਇਹ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟੀਸ਼ਨਰ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਰੈਂਕ ਜੇਮਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਤਨਾ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਕੋਲ ਇੰਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਸਰੀ ਡਾਕਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ, ਉਸ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਹੈਲਥ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੇਤਨਾ ਲਿਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਹੈਲਥ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਪਏਗਾ ਇਸ ਦਾ, ਉਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸੋਚ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਇसी विषय बारे गलबात करते हैं डॉक्टर फ्रैंक जेम्स नाल। वेलकम टू द प्रोग्राम सर।
Thank you.
Thank you. A little bit about yourself. Since how long you have been associated teaching and practicing as a medical doctor?
Well, it's been almost 30 years.
Right.
I spent about 10 years doing a major research project on the prevention of cancer, and I teach regularly. I have anywhere from 2 to 6 students at a time, mostly physicians that are working on an advanced degree in public health, a PhD or what's called a Master's in Public Health degree.
These days, you have research on cancer, as you have said, and what we are finding out is that with the coming of new technologies, more and more diseases are also coming to the fore. While we are fighting them also, but also what we are using is having an impact on our health also. How do you see this?
That's an interesting issue. Life expectancy generally across the globe has increased. Every year, people live longer. The exceptions to that are typically places where there are wars.
Right.
The only exception that we've seen in recent times is in China. In China, there's been documented about a 5.5-year decrease in life expectancy, and that decrease is most likely due to the vast amount of pollution that's there. In Vancouver, if the air pollution index gets to about 100, people with lung disease or heart disease are told to go inside and lie down.
Right.
Routinely in southern China, it can reach 300. And not too long ago in the Beijing area, it got to 700. In fact, it peaked at 900.
Wow.
Which is really incompatible with life.
Right.
So there are environmental factors that are at play right now, which I think are shortening lifespan, but overwhelmingly in most places over the past 100 years has been just a steady increase in life expectancy. And I think we're bumping up against that ultimate increase at this point, and it's probably going to be due to environmental contamination.
Right. Dr. James, you have been involved with the Communities in Coal also, that organization which is spearheading a campaign and telling about the negative impact of importing coal from the United States. How did you get involved with them?
Well, about 2 years ago, it became apparent that there was a potential issue in my community down in Whatcom County, right across the border. Some very powerful financial forces wanted to put a coal port there. And that coal export port would handle about 50 million tons annually of coal. And so some of the physicians in our community came together and said, well, we need to look at this. But it wasn't people who were for or against it. It was people that had questions about it.
Right.
And so about a dozen of us docs reviewed about 400 articles. We went to the medical librarian and said, find us the literature about these issues. We reviewed it, and as busy doctors, we didn't review it at meetings or anything like that. We reviewed it between 9 at night and 2 in the morning.
Right.
And then we would basically share this information with one another and write summaries of them. We sort of expected there'd be 2 even piles.
Right.
But it didn't turn out that way. The negative things overwhelmed any potential benefit.
Right.
And so we identified about 5 issues that we found to be potentially really serious. There's, of course, the safety on the tracks.
Right.
The train simply hitting people. As you know, a few weeks ago, a woman was killed right not far from here.
Yeah.
In the White Rock community. People have been killed in our community. And when you increase dramatically the amount of train traffic, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
There's also the issue of delays. These trains that are being proposed are 1.6 miles long. And take at least 8 to 10 minutes to pass through, and could take a lot longer. So
right.
Fire, police, ambulances could be substantially delayed. In hospitals, one of the people on the review group was a cardiologist, and they work to shave 45 seconds off response time. To have something come into our community that would delay response time by 15 minutes,
20 minutes, yeah.
is just unthinkable. So those are two issues we identified. Then there are very specific health issues from the coal dust. Is your child having asthma with that? Is your grandmother having a heart attack or a stroke? I mean, we now know at the molecular level how diesel particulate matter works. It's of a size that it can be breathed not just in your upper airway, but down in the very deepest recess of your lung.
Okay.
And that diesel particulate matter then carries with it various toxins that are produced in the production of diesel.
Right.
And it goes right into your alveoli and is taken up in your bloodstream.
So you're talking about the coal dust?
The diesel particulate matter
diesel
that comes out of the trains that carry it.
Okay.
Because they're so frequent and they're so large and they produce so much, it's the equivalent of a new freeway, basically.
Okay.
The coal dust is one issue. The diesel particulate matter is another. But the diesel particulate matter in particular, I'm worried about because it is associated with a doubling of asthma rates. It's associated with increases in cancer rates. It's associated with heart attack and stroke increases.
Right.
So when you add that to what's already there from all the vehicles, and you add basically like having a new freeway in your neighborhood,
right.
It's also not evenly distributed in the population. A lot of the proponents want to study average everybody in the province in the study. It's really the people that are upwind. So people who are upwind from where these facilities are going to have potentially serious impacts.
Right. Absolutely, you're right, and not of course at the cost of your health and your generations which are coming, because as you said, this diesel particulate, the impact it can have. We'll go for a small break, come back, and then continue with our discussion as to what needs to be done, how the people can also be involved in such kind of movements and kind of create pressure on the governments that yes, we need progress, but then at what cost? We'll continue with the discussion. ਸੋ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਰੈਂਕ ਜੇਮਸ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਜੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਡੀਜ਼ਲ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਰਟੀਕੂਲੇਟਸ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਲੋਕੋਮੋਟਿਵਸ ਜਾਣੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਵਾ 'ਚ ਆਉਣ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੈਂਸਰ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਐਸਥਮਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਹੋਰ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਨਾਮੁਰਾਦ ਬਿਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਕੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰੈਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ, ਕੀ ਇਹ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? ਮੇਰਾ ਅਗਲਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਅਤੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਵੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ? ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਲੋਕ ਚੇਤਨ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰੈਸ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਇਹ ਕਾਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਨਜ਼ੂਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਲ ਖਰੀਦਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ $1 ਪਰ ਟਨ, ਪਰ ਇਹ $100 ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਸਿਰਫ ਟਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਾਸਟ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ $120 ਜਾਂ $25 ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਚਾਈਨਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਕਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੇਚਣਾ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਕੁਝ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ ਪਰ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਆਮ ਜਨਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਦਾ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋਅ। ਇਸ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਨੇ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਰੈਂਕ ਜੇਮਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਵੀ ਨੇ, ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੇ, ਬਿਲਿੰਗਮ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਹਨ, ਇਹ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਪੱਖ ਤੋਂ ਜੇਕਰ ਇਹ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕੋਮੋਟਿਵਸ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਪੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। So while we have discussed in details about the negative impacts and the research which has been done, what's in it for BC? Because ultimately British Columbians are the ones, and especially the people living in this area, are going to be the worst affected by all this. But again, it's the federal government which manages the ports and they are the ones who decide. So how do you feel? What is in it for BC and what can the common man do to create some awareness?
Well, it's interesting you would frame it that way because I think that's exactly the situation. What's in it for BC, and it's all downside. There's a few people who will make money in transporting the coal. But for the most part, it's large American corporations that are going to make money, and what BC gets is the risk and the problems.
Right.
It's extremely unfortunate. The other thing is that because of the way the port structure is in BC, there's very few levers of management that allow for this far-sighted decisions that will respect the rights and the health of local communities. And that's a big problem. Coming from the States, you know, there's no Clean Air Act, there's no Clean Water Act, there's no way citizens can take action. So I think what people have to do is they have to speak loud and vigorously. I think that, honestly, people can have a say. They just need to speak clearly and unequivocally about what they expect and what they want. And it may come down to replacing national politicians. I mean, it could be that that's what it comes to.
Right.
And if that's what it takes, I guess that's what it takes. I'm not being a Canadian. I would humbly defer to Canadians about what they want to do with their sovereign nation.
Right.
But I don't see a lot of opportunities to change. In the U.S., we have a more robust process. We were able to get an environmental impact statement that looks at all the issues. That's very unusual. Here, they don't even want to do a full environmental impact assessment.
That's right, right.
And they certainly are not, at this point, prepared to do a health impact assessment, which I believe is absolutely essential for the local community to know what's at risk.
So that kind of awareness which you brought over in the United States, what's the present situation now? Are those tracks from where these trains were to come, has the government decided that we will not allow them, or it's still in the consultation phase?
There were originally 6 ports proposed. 3 of them have been taken off the table.
Okay.
There is another one that's being looked at closely now. So we don't know. The one just south of here, that near where I live, it hasn't yet been decided what will happen. What has been decided, because of public input, a very robust health impact assessment and environmental impact study is going to be done.
Right.
Now, you have to look at the quality of it, and you have to then follow up to make sure that the direct and obvious implications of those studies are actually followed in terms of making policy. I believe that it makes no sense to dig up rocks in the middle of Montana, ship them across several states, including BC, and then ship them off to Asia. What kind of sense does that make? The other things that don't make sense, there are protections that they're offering for the people in Delta that they aren't offering the people on Texada Island.
Right.
Because people here are organized and asked for it and demanded it, really. They're going to get something. The people up in Texada, they're going to get open coal piles, 60 or 90 feet tall that blow in the wind. So I think the only way that the communities are going to be protected in this situation is going to be for them to organize and be articulate and be informed and be involved.
You very rightly said, I appreciate what you have said, that these days the way things are projected, it's this way or that way kind of thing, because then in the minds of the people a fair psychosis is created when it comes to jobs, when it comes to economy. But the way it should be presented is not being followed suit. But nevertheless, we hope that this thing is looked into and something comes forward. Towards the end, what would be your message to our viewers today? How can they also be a part, as you very rightly said before, that at least let's come forward and start discussing on these issues? So what would be your message?
Well, I would hope that they speak out and ask for, specifically for a health impact assessment, a formal, objective, independent health impact assessment. The provincial health officers asked for that. The jurisdictional health officers in the Lower Mainland have asked for that. They deserve that. They deserve to know what the facts are. A fair, objective, independent health impact assessment. Then they'll know. And I think the findings of that study will speak for themselves, whether or not this should go forward or not.
And before I let you go, Doctor, you are very passionate about this particular issue. What makes you be so passionate about this particular issue?
I was interviewed by a radio person some time ago, and she asked me that question, and I was reflecting on it, and probably the thing that makes me sad, I was reading The Lord of the Rings to my son. He's 9. And we'd read for 2 years to get through this 4 volumes of books. And at the end of it, you can hear the trains from our house, and he heard the train coming. You can tell coal trains because they're much noisier, they're much heavier, and they squeal and squeak. And he looked up at me and he said, "Dad, is that train from Mordor?" And I have to say that it took me aback. I realized that that's the level of struggle that this is about. There are people literally digging up the earth and shipping it to other places just for money. They've lost track of the meaning that human life has and that our community has. And I guess the flip side of that, the people that I've met, both in the States and here in Canada, have become good friends. These are people that are they're working for life. They're working for what's good. They're working for what's ethical. And to that extent, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to become involved, because I've met people that are wonderful people doing good work.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you and best wishes.
It's an honor. Thank you.
ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਰੈਂਕ ਜੇਮਸ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਮਸਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਬੜਾ ਗੰਭੀਰ ਰੂਪ ਅਖਤਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ USA ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਨਾਲ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਟਾਕਸ ਬੰਨੇ ਸੀ 3 ਰੁਕਵਾ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ, 3 ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਜੇ ਕੰਸਲਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਚੇਤਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਮਸਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਕੁਝ ਪੈਸੇ ਦੇ ਖਾਤਰ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਇਸ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਪਏਗਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਮੁੱਖ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ।